Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bet Tech Show. We're your hosts, Ben and Ethan, and we have got some exciting tech news for you here at bedtime. We are going to start off with Battle of Face Computers. So, right now, recently, Meta has announced their Orion glasses, which are the smartest glasses of their kind, according to their marketing campaign and what they shared during their unveiling keynote that they had. There were some great things about it. The initial reception of these, I think, have been extremely positive.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is going to be a bit of the downfall for these glasses is probably going to be the price, because they did say that um, early reports for this, it takes about $10,000 to make the product, and you know they're going to have a margin. So if they were to share have a consumer product for this now, it would be astronomical. It does make a little bit of sense. I mean, all of the computing power that they have behind these in that small form factor and what it can do is pretty remarkable. They have an overlay on their lenses. You are able to have some augmented reality. It has some smart tracking. So if you were to like set a window in a certain place, if you move your head, that window is going to stay static. And
Yeah.
as you do things, which I think is extremely cool.
hmm
And I think this is going to be one of those direct competitors as of right now for Apple's augmented reality Vision Pro headset that they have that is $3,500. Currently has flopped due to a lack of apps. And Netflix has even said that they aren't willing to dedicate resources to developing an app for that, which is pretty sad considering,
That's a blow.
yeah, how big Netflix is, how big Apple is. And if they can see that this isn't really worth their resources, that's really sad.
Yeah.
So I think Meta's kind of taking the right approach here. I mean, it seems like they're taking their time with this. They're really starting to refine it. They've got some really good initial prototypes for it. And on separate interviews that I've heard from it, Meta has a few generations that they are currently developing. So
hmm
what we've seen so far is their first gen. They're working on a second and third gen as well to try, and their main goal is to try and get all of these features in a form factor and price point that is going to be consumer oriented and consumer friendly.
Yeah. 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 There's a couple points here that I want to touch on that we can kind of expand into. The cost to make Orion glasses, that's that's crazy expensive, man. 10K.
Yeah,
That's
it,
wild.
it's astronomical. I
It really is.
It makes sense now that, if we kind of think about it. I mean, there's a lot of tech behind that. I mean, it's confined in essentially glasses, and it has some wristbands to it that allow you to, you know, get hand gestures and everything,
Yeah. Gesture control. Yep.
gesture control, that it doesn't even need to like have cameras that track your gestures. I mean, technically you could have your hands behind your back and make those gestures with the glasses and it would recognize them, which I think.
Yep.
But yeah, that price point, it, it's jarring to me, but it makes sense. And
It
I'm
makes
really
sense.
hopeful
Yeah.
that as they are iterating this and making it better, that they will be able to bring it to a more reasonable price point.
I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah, right now I think they're probably um investing in R&D
Yes.
as we've talked about in the past. But I think they've seen Apple's Vision Pro and realize here are multiple lessons we can learn from them. Price point's too high. Uh the actual hardware is too clunky. Wired is not the way to go. So they've made it wireless. And then there's also a few other features there that they're expanding on. So you're like you brought up the technology where the gesture control is based on the wristband. It tracks the electrical pulses that your muscles make. And after having iterations of people demonstrating it and learning it, it can identify what you're doing with your fingers through the electrical pulses, which is pretty cool. So there's some really cool technology. It's very innovative. I think this takes what we've seen in the past, like Google Glass, and just layers on much more interactiveness and the technology that we've developed over the last 10 years with AR, and it applies it into the same consumer hardware of these glasses, right? 10K, that's a crazy cost, but I think they realize they're going to eat that until they get to a point where they've streamlined supply chain, they've streamlined manufacturing, they have the technology built out, and it's very efficient. That'll happen in the next 3 years or so. And then they'll the idea I'm assuming is to have some margins on something that's priced maybe in the 1 to 3K range. Um, you probably saw interviews with their chief technology officer, Andrew Bosworth. He goes by Boz.
Mhm.
Um, but he's Meta's CTO, and that was like one of the biggest points he made. The question that I saw that was asked was, what's next for the development of this? And he's like, we have to get the cost to be consumer friendly. We have to drive that cost down, and that's what we're working on. We're working on, he said, we're working on the hardware to make it more consumer friendly as well. He said like their next gen is going to have thinner lenses and frames. And you saw in the reveal that it's pretty it's pretty thick. But those were the two things that he said. He's like the cost just has to be more consumer friendly. So I think we spoke last week that the target that they're aiming for is anywhere between like a smartphone and a laptop. So take that for what you will. But
Yeah. I mean, just first impressions of it, they are bulky from glasses standpoint, but
mhm.
from an AR headset, they are extremely small.
Oh yeah, agreed,
And
agreed.
so I think so far they've done a really good job, just as like their first gen, really iterate and balancing that aspect of it. And I
Hmm.
think, as this evolves a little bit more, it's going to be even better to the point where people won't even notice whether you're wearing uh, AR glasses or not.
Yeah, yeah. I think they'll get to a point where they are pretty much the same, thickness and like like overall volume of material that regular glasses are. But it's a really cool first iteration to see. I think some of the features are really awesome. What I did notice was like when I was watching the videos, it looked like you could see like the shine from the
Hmm.
AR on the lenses, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's like a very subtle indicator of like maybe that they're smart glasses if you're walking around day to day. But if they get to a point where they look like just regular frames, it's not going to matter that much. Um, they also mentioned the degree of view, like your field of view, and they said it's like 70 degrees, which means if you're like working with certain, like let's say you have an app open and you're trying to drag that app's not going to get cut off in your field of view. Like it'll continue to go and you can stick it there, like you were saying. And then if you move your head, that window stays there. And then if you move your head back, it's still there. But your field of view is a lot better. So there's no like cut off from the pieces that you're working with or the apps that you're working with. Or if you're trying to build something like, AR, you're interacting with a table, you have a live table, but then you're interacting with something in virtual reality or augmented reality on the table. It's not going to get cut off if you pull it to the side one way or the other. So that was like a huge highlight that I saw that I didn't think about that because I don't really use AR or VR, but apparently it's been a complaint of like apps and objects being cut off in the field of view.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so it's kind of cool to like hear that it's almost it's not like a full 180 where it's like a straight line across your entire eye. We have like the full peripheral, right? But it's 70 degrees, so it's like pretty good. And yeah, there's some other cool features that I like. Did you see the puck? Like the puck that the processor
Yeah,
that powers it? Kind of interesting. What are your thoughts on like that versus Apple's take on things?
I think it's better
Yeah,
than having a cord hanging from your headset strapped to a fanny pack
yeah,
that looks like your belt is digesting a small animal.
yeah,
So, I think that that's interesting, and I know some interviews that I had heard and reviewed. They're wanting it to be such that it doesn't matter. Like it's something that you don't have to think about. Like you could
yeah,
leave it on your desk or in the side of the room, but your glasses are still able to communicate with it.
yeah,
And so I think that that's really cool. The problem that I think might be that that would be so good that people are going to forget about it and then they'll walk off and then that functionality that drives won't be with them because they drove to the grocery store and they don't have it.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like the Apple Watch paired with your phone, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's a fair point. And the other thing I was thinking of was like, it's another thing to carry around, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, oh man, that's kind of annoying. I mean, great that it's wireless, but it is another thing to carry around. I'm like, that's kind of a nuisance, you know?
Yeah, and
Uh,
then if you have to have those wristbands on too all the time,
yeah,
that's a little bit much. So,
yeah,
I mean, I think there can be some refining. I mean, definitely just like if you're wanting to have like set some time aside just to be in the VR AR space, having those peripherals with it, I don't think that'd be a problem. But if you have those on like through your regular day-to-day activities, they may get in the way. And it may be a
I
little.
agree. Yeah, yeah, for sure. The other thing too is like everything nowadays is becoming electronic. Like everything that we have is becoming a smart device. And it also reminds me of like power and charging. Like, okay, this is just another thing that I have to plug in and charge. Because they were talking about battery life and the glasses, they say the battery will last 2 to 3 hours, but the wristband and the puck can last all day. And I think to myself, like, what's three more items that I need to charge every day? And I'm like, everything's just becoming a plug-in, and I just need to charge everything nowadays. And so that's like another minor nuisance, but I think about that where I'm like, what's my nightstand gonna look like? It's just full of like little gadgets that I'm charging, like my watch, my phone, my headphones, my glasses, my puck, my wristband, the works. If you have like a Aura ring, your ring, is
Yep.
charging. So I don't know. I like right now, I don't feel too overwhelmed with like electronics, but I can see the time come when everything that we have is electronic, like a
Right.
wallet. You need to charge your wallet. You got to charge your bell, or I don't know, random stuff. Everyone's
It
trying to
is
make
getting a
everything
little
smart.
ridiculous. I agree.
Yeah, yeah,
And, I think pretty soon and it seems like it's getting to the point where we're just going to have to develop more electronics to fix that, which isn't really getting at the problem.
yeah,
I mean, we're going to start developing an electronic nightstand that, you can just place all of your devices and they'll start charging. But
yeah,
that doesn't really solve the problem of
yeah, exactly. And then they'll
device.
probably create like, I don't know, because it'll get so bad. I'm assuming there's probably not the best like radio waves or electronic waves going out there. Maybe create some kind of like compartment that you could put everything in, or like a wraparound, or I don't know. I think of like all the electronics as well, and I think of all the things that are on your body. I'm like, okay, I got my phone, I got my watch. Now I have glasses that are right at my head and my brain. Then I
Mhm.
have the puck. Then I have the wristband, and then I have headphones in my ear. Like this can't be like all the like waves that are happening that I can't see. That can't be good for me, right? I would imagine that's not that good for me. Um, and I wonder if like we're gonna see an increase in cancer or sicknesses or like deterioration of people's bodies over
Yes.
time just because they're just literally inside electronic magnetic, you know, clothing or like just they just don all they do is just don on electronics and smart devices and whatnot. And so they're just, coated in electronic waves.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's going to get to the point, where people are going to say, yeah, my grandmother passed away. Oh, what kind of cancer did she have? Oh, she was hit by a bus. Oh, that's called bus cancer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, well, and the fact that like, oh, what cancer is it? Like the assumption of cancer, right?
Yeah.
So
So, I mean, yeah, it's interesting to see the take that App or Meta had on these versus what Apple has done.
yeah,
And I think at this point, Meta is ahead of Apple, which is which is pretty cool. I think, for a company of how much they've invested in their metaverse and everything, I initially thought that that was probably not the smartest move by Mark Zuckerberg. However, now seeing it and the products that they're starting to develop and where it's going, I kind of see the vision, and I'm like, okay, this may be worth it, and I
yeah,
think it's it's a step in the right direction for this type of technology, and maybe it'll start to bring it more mainstream.
yeah. I agree. I think it will help bring it more mainstream. I also think going back to your point where you know that Meta is ahead of Apple. I will say the one thing that Apple has going for them is they actually have a product that is on the market.
Yes.
Where Meta, it might be a year or two before you can actually purchase it. What was the target launch date? Do they have a target launch date or a target year date? Year to launch?
I don't think they did. I
Yeah, I don't, I
think
don't
this
think they did either.
I think this is so young in production that it yeah, I don't think they have a target release date that they were willing to. Yeah, it doesn't have a concrete release date.
Yeah. And and so I think like I just Googled it really fast on my computer. You can probably tell that I'm looking at a search result. But people are saying like 2027 before 2030. So there's some time for that to happen where Apple can, iterate upon their first gen of AR glasses, goggles, whatever you call them. Um, I will say right now, from a technology standpoint, I agree 100% with you. Meta has done something that's like, wow, this is actually what we're looking for. Tony Stark glasses, right? And not ski goggles. So I agree 100% with you in that aspect. It just, I really hope Meta can learn how to decrease that cost to build them because I don't want another situation where we see the technology announced, but then it's too expensive to produce and therefore it's never fully released.
Yeah.
You know what I
That
mean?
yeah, that is something that I've thought about too. I mean, this is a cool theory, but until it actually comes out on the market, they aren't receiving anything from it. And as consumers, we're not benefiting from it either.
Yeah.
And um, Apple does have that bit of an edge where they have a product on the shelves, albeit not doing as well as they hoped.
Yeah.
It's still out there, and consumers still have it. I think a lot about, we've kind of seen this with the EV market as well, where we have companies promising, hey, we're going to release this more consumer friendly vehicle, but it's not going to be for a couple of years.
Yeah.
By the time that it is released, is it going to be too late?
Yeah.
Uh, so that's something that I think Meta has going against it right now. I mean,
Yeah.
once they do finally release this, is it going to be too late? Are we already going to have something like this from competitors, or is AR VR going to completely die? yeah, it's a bit of a gamble.
Yeah, it is. It is a bit of a gamble. And I just want to get your pulse really quick. Let's just say theoretically, what we've seen from Meta and what the AR glasses are, Orion, what they are. Let's just take everything that we've seen there and apply them into like actual, well, apply them to our real life right now. If they were on the market for what they are and they worked as they should, as they say they will, right? And the price point was under $2,000, would you buy these glasses?
I probably would.
You probably would.
Yeah. I think they're pretty cool. I mean, that's something that I've wanted. I've wanted, just glasses that have in-screen display that don't look completely terrible and don't look like goggles.
Yeah.
I think this is a cool technology. I'd probably try it out. I just mostly because of how what it looks like now, what it's proposed of being capable of doing.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge AR VR person, but I think if I was to get into that, this would probably be the first product that would get me into it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What are your
Okay.
thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would hold off, but I think the last comment you made was what aligns with my take, which is if they were available on the market today, there's no other VR or AR product that I'm like, oh, I'm itching to buy that, except for it would be those glasses. And because they're so mm, low profile, meaning they don't stand out. They're portable. I can take them, on the street. I don't think the battery for the actual glasses doesn't last all day, but I could still use them for a decent amount of time, then charge them, then use them again probably later in the day, right? I I am hesitant to drop a decent amount of money though on something that I've never really tested or used or uh I'm not an early adopter. I'll say that. I like other people to adopt things and vet it out before I drop money. Well, that's me.
You're
That's
the
just my
smarter one.
take. What's that?
You're the smarter one. 'Cause
Or sometimes, but then sometimes I get behind the curve and I'm like late to adopt certain technology. Or like I'm suffering longer than I should, right? Like sometimes I'm a late adopter of things. I'm like, why did I not do this like earlier? This is so dumb, you know?
Yeah, my downfall is I go in head first and then I'm like, oh, I probably should have waited. And the Gen 2 is out now, and that's a lot better than the Gen 1. And I got to get the Gen 2 now. So
It's hit or miss on both ends,
I
right? It's
know.
hit or miss on both ends. I was a late adopter to the smartphone, and like I held off and held off and held off. And I think my first smartphone was like an iPhone 7 or 8.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, it was late, bro. It was late.
Wow.
And then when I got one, I'm like, what the heck? Like, how did I live life before this? What was I doing? Like, I have a computer in my hands. This is the easiest thing to do. If I want to look something up or check times or whatever, I could just do it on my phone. Over here I am going back to my computer to look up directions, mapquest.com, and like 2012, It's like, come on, Dan, what the freak are you doing? So
Uh,
dumb.
that's funny because yeah, I think I got a smartphone right. It was like my senior year of high school,
Yeah.
like a touchscreen smartphone.
Yeah.
But I didn't have an iPhone because that was on AT&T and T and I didn't have AT&T. So I was I was stuck with a Samsung. But
That's right. The first ones came out on AT&T. I remember
yeah,
that very exclusive deal they had. That was pretty
yes.
sweet.
So, but yeah, and so I mean, I think that kind of cemented me just trying everything out firsthand.
You'd think I'd learned my lesson from my mistakes, but here I am being stubborn to change. So that's me. But pretty cool stuff. I'm excited to see more. I'm excited to see
Yeah, me
what
too.
innovation will look like. And I think this is like probably one of the more innovative products we've seen over the last few years.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. It was one of the products like after watching the keynote, I was like, wow, this is actually they've got something here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Or whereas like watching an Apple keynote, it's like, oh, cool, we get new color.
Yeah. Colors. Hey,
Hey,
colors. These
colors.
headphones have been out for 5 years. We haven't done any changes. Colors.
Like,
It's
what can we do to
ridiculous.
get people to spend more money? Colors.
Yeah.
Colors.
My daughter really wanted a blue one. So how about we just give them more colors? Genius idea, Brad. Let's do it.
Yes.
Gosh. Crazy.
Uh, all right. Anything else you want to talk about with?
No, I think it's good. I think there's some options on the market for AR and VR, but there's nothing like what Meta has announced. Granted, it's not on the market yet, but Meta has, like I said, I think they've like learned from what other products are on the market and consolidated them into a low profile AR hardware device that can do a lot for the consumer, make their life easier. And so it's really exciting. I wish they could get that cost down and then they could get it to the market faster, but we might not see this for a few years. So
Yeah, it's a little disappointing, but cool nonetheless. So I agree.
yeah,
I think this is really, really awesome, and I'm excited for what the future brings.
same. Yep.
Well, if you all are excited for what the future brings, give us a thumbs up. That really does help out with our channel. If you disliked it, that other button seems to work all right as well. Make sure you send it to somebody you dislike. They could use this in their life. As always, ring-a-ling that ding-a-ling button so you never miss any content as it's posted on the channel. Until next time, stay classy and have a great evening.
Peace.